This happened when I was 13 years old. The internet wasn't just a distraction. It was my world. School was a nightmare, and home wasn't much better. But online, I was someone. And that's where I met Christine. She said she was a 14-year-old red-haired girl living the same life like every teenager. We chatted for months, then one night, she asked to meet. I didn't even think twice. That night, I slipped out into the cold, my breath clouding the air as I waited alone in the empty streets. Just when I was thinking Mom's gonna be so mad, I saw a car coming my way. Isn't Christine too young to drive? Damn, she must be a baddie, I thought. But once the car pulled over near me, I saw a grown-up man behind the steering wheel. He had a smile on his face. He said Christine is his niece and he came to take me to her. I was only 13. Of course I didn't doubt his words, and I went with him. He took me to a house close by the woods.
Where is Christine?
I asked, entering the silent house. Suddenly, he gripped my arm and started dragging me downstairs.
What's happening? What are you doing?
I screamed. He didn't answer and dragged me down the basement. The basement was like stepping into a nightmare. Chains hanging from the ceiling, the walls smeared with stains that looked like blood. He shoved me onto the floor, then locked a heavy chain around my ankle. "You're mine now," he said, crouching in front of me. His grin stretched too wide, his teeth yellow and jagged. No running, no hiding, just us. The first night, I sat trembling in the cold, damp basement. By that time, I knew there was never a girl named Christine. This man had lied to me, and now I'm his prisoner. Next day, I was made to sit on a chair facing a camera. The sick psycho held a knife to my throat and whispered, "Smile. They all want to see you smile." I didn't. He screamed in my ear, "I said smile!" He pressed the blade to my lips. Blood dripped as it pierced my skin. Tears rolled down my eyes. I cried.
Why are you doing this to me?
"So you won't listen, huh?" He took out a duct tape and started taping my mouth and nose shut. My chest tightened as I struggled to breathe. My heart raced as panic set in. He lit a cigarette, the tip glowing as he leaned in close. "You want air?" he asked, his tone light, almost playful. "Then behave." The cigarette came closer, the smoke stinging my eyes. Tears streamed down my face as he held the burning tip near my eyeball. My muffled sobbing echoed in the basement. He pressed it to my neck first, the pain searing, unbearable. My body trembled, but the chain held me in place. "I just gave you a tattoo." He laughed in sick joy. When he finally ripped the tape off, I gasped for air, sobbing so hard I thought I'd choke. He smiled, patting my cheek like I was a child. "Good girl, you're learning." The second day, he tied my hands behind my back, forcing me to kneel in front of the camera. "Stay still," he whispered. He then took out a scissor and chopped some of my hair. "Stop squirming," he barked, grabbing my shoulder and forcing me still. "You'll ruin my masterpiece." I bit down on my lips so hard it bled, trying not to scream. When he finished, he stepped back, admiring his work. "Beautiful," he said, angling the camera to show every inch of what he'd done. "They're gonna love this." The fact that this man is not only torturing me, but also filming this, and there are people who'll enjoy watching a 13-year-old in such a condition, made me realize what a sick world we live in. After finishing recording me like that, he picked up a chainsaw from the floor. "It's time to take this to the next level," he said, turning it on. I tried to crawl away, but the chain yanked me back. He grabbed my leg, pinning me in place, the chainsaw hovering inches from my skin. "You won't mind using a crutch, right?" He smiled ear to ear, holding the chainsaw up. I thrashed, screaming, begging, but he just leaned closer, the blade inching toward my thigh. The metal teeth grazed my skin, and I thought, this is it. I am going to die. Then the door burst open. Shouts, flashlights. The roar of the chainsaw cut off as men in uniform stormed the room. He didn't fight. He just stood there, smiling as they cuffed him. I don't remember much after that. The chains were gone, and someone carried me into the light, but part of me is still in that basement. Even now, when I close my eyes, I hear the hum of the chainsaw. I feel the blade on my skin, and I wonder how close I came to never leaving. On New Year's Day 2002, 13-year-old Alicia Kozakevich got kidnapped by 38-year-old computer programmer Scott Tyree, who befriended her pretending to be a 14-year-old girl online. Over the course of 4 days, Alicia was held captive, shackled, abused, and tortured in Tyree's basement dungeon. Tyree filmed the abuse and also broadcasted it on the dark web. A viewer in Florida recognized Alicia from news stories and a missing persons flyer. He contacted the FBI anonymously and via a payphone because he feared being charged as an accessory to the crime. Tracking Tyree's IP address, the FBI arrested him on January 4th, 2002. In September 2003, Tyree was sentenced to 19 years and 7 months in federal prison. I'm 27 years old, a mother to a beautiful little boy, and I work hard to give him a better life. I lived with my fiancée, Marcine, in West Yorkshire, England. Things weren't perfect between us, far from it. Marcine had a temper, quick to anger over the smallest things. His harsh words and cruel remarks cut deep, but I stayed for the sake of our child. I thought things could get better. One Thursday, I was doing household chores, taking a leave from work. Marcine was usually quiet, sitting in the living room, barely looking at me. Later in that evening, he told me his friend Patrick was coming for dinner. Patrick was always unsettling to me, with a sneering demeanor that mirrored the actor from Shining, but I didn't say anything to avoid another fight. Around 9, 3 of us sat down to eat. Marcine and Patrick shared some private jokes, laughing loudly while I ate in silence. The tension in the room felt suffocating, but I stayed calm, thinking about my son and how this was just another moment to endure. I excused myself after dinner to clear the dishes, hoping to find some quiet. Then, as I turned to leave the room, I felt a sharp, cold pressure against the back of my neck. Before I could react, an electric jolt surged through my body. My knees buckled, the world spun, and everything went black. Sound of digging and dirt hitting a hard surface woke me up. Opening my eyes, all I could see was pitch black darkness. My wrists were bound tightly in front of me with tape, and my legs felt like they were pinned together. I tried to move, but the confined space pressed back against me. Panic started to set in as I realized I was inside something small and tight. Maybe a box. I screamed for help, my voice trembling with fear.
Marcin! Marcin, what's going on?
Muffled voices answered, their tones chillingly casual. She's awake, Patrick said, his voice almost amused. Good, Marcine replied. Let her scream. It doesn't matter now. My heart raced. What did he mean? I strained to hear more, but the sound of dirt hitting the box drowned out their words. My breath hitched as the reality hit me. They were burying me alive.
Please don't do this!
I screamed, kicking and thrashing against the walls of the box. My pleas grew more desperate as the dirt piled on, muffling the sounds of the outside world. And then, few minutes later, I heard a Marcine's car drive away. Oh God, they left me to die. Inside the box, the air grew hotter and thinner. The darkness pressed in on me, choking me with fear. My mind raced, trying to understand how the man I once loved could do this. Why? The dirt continued to fall, sealing me away from the world. My body shook with sobs as I clawed at the tape binding my wrists. Then, I felt it, the sharp edge of my engagement ring. My breath caught in my throat. Could I use it? It was small, but it was something. I twisted the ring against the tape, grinding it back and forth until my fingers throbbed with pain. Time seemed to stretch endlessly, the weight of the earth above pressing down on the box and on me. Finally, the tape snapped. My hands were free, but the battle was far from over. Using my hands, I pushed at the cardboard walls. It was weak, but reinforced by the weight of the dirt. I clawed at it with everything I had, tearing through it piece by piece. My nails broke and my fingers bled, but I didn't stop. Finally, the box gave way, and dirt cascaded around me. I pushed through, inch by agonizing inch, until my hand broke the surface. I gasped for air as I dragged myself out of the shallow grave. The cold night air hit my skin, sharp and stinging, but it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever felt. I stumbled toward the road, my legs trembling with exhaustion. My clothes were tattered, my hair matted with dirt, and every part of me ached. When I saw the faint glow of headlights in the distance, I screamed for help, waving my arms frantically. The car slowed, its driver staring at me with wide, terrified eyes. At first, they hesitated, but when I collapsed onto the ground, they rushed to help. My voice was hoarse, barely a whisper, as I told them what happened.
Please, help me. They tried to kill me.
The cops eventually arrested my crazy ex and his friend for attempted murder. I fought my way out of the grave, and I will keep fighting for my son, for myself, for the life they tried to take from me. In 2011, Michalina Lewandowska, a young Polish woman, survived a horrifying ordeal when her fiancé, Marcin Kasprak, and his friend, Patrick Boris, attacked her with a stun gun. They bound her and buried her alive in a cardboard box at the local cemetery. Motivated by a desire to end their relationship and gain custody of their child, Kasprak buried her in a shallow grave, covering it with soil and a heavy tree branch. Using her engagement ring to cut through the box, Michalina clawed her way to freedom. She alerted authorities, and Kasprak and Boris was arrested and later sentenced to 20 years in prison for attempted murder. No one saw it coming. Neither did I, but one thing led to another, and here I am, remembering every detail of that night at Buffalo Wild Wings. It was just another Saturday, and my plans were simple. A few drinks, a little distraction, but things rarely go according to plan when emotions are simmering just below the surface. I arrived around 10 p.m. The night was in full swing, the constant murmur of conversation mixed with laughter, the sound of clinking glasses, the smell of hot sauce in the air. At first, everything seemed fine. I just wanted to get lost in the crowd. One more face in Colombia, a shadow that would disappear unnoticed. But then he showed up. A guy I knew from before, someone I didn't exactly get along with. Seeing him there, laughing, carefree, I felt the cold metal in my pocket, its weight giving me a false sense of control. I took a few steps, determined, when a waiter walked in front of me. He looked at me with curiosity and a hint of annoyance. "Can I help you with something, buddy?" he asked, noticing that I wasn't about to sit down. I shook my head, trying to remain calm. "No, thanks," I replied, as if everything was normal. My eyes returned to the guy in the corner, and our eyes met, triggering a series of cold remarks that were hurled like darts. The tension between us was palpable, and before I knew it, my hand moved on its own and reached for the gun in my pocket. I aimed, and with a single shot, the night shattered into 1,000 pieces. "Run! Run!" I heard someone yell as panic spread like wildfire. People stumbled over chairs, some threw themselves to the ground, and the waiter from earlier looked at me, pale. One of the wounded man's friends yelled at me from across the restaurant. "You crazy bastard! What the hell is wrong with you?" I didn't answer. I knew that nothing I could say would explain the inexplicable. I slipped through the crowd and managed to get out before the officers arrived, but I wasn't fast enough. The sirens were already wailing in the distance, and red and blue lights were flashing down the street. I stopped on the sidewalk, breathing heavily, and within minutes the officers surrounded me. One of them stepped out, gun drawn, and yelled, "Hands up! Don't move!" I put my hands up and looked him straight in the eye. "Officer, calm down. I'm not gonna resist." As they cuffed me, the officer murmured, still incredulous, "Why? Why ruin your life like this?" I sighed, knowing no one would understand. Because If only for a moment everyone knew I existed, I replied quietly. Later in the cell, I heard the murmurs of officers talking about how Buffalo Wild Wings closed the next day and how the employees were too afraid to return to work. I realized how that moment of chaos had shattered the normalcy of so many lives, and the weight of my actions hit me hard. I thought about how Colombia was caught in a cycle of violence. The news said that the crime rate had dropped 16.8% in the last year, which made me laugh ironically. A number on a piece of paper doesn't capture the pain behind every story, like the guy who died at Walmart in March or the shooting in May. Maybe the city will move on, hoping for change, but I know I can never escape who I've become. The guy who fired a shot in a Buffalo Wild Wings on an ordinary Saturday night. This incident occurred on the night of Saturday, August 7th, 2024, when a man was taken to the hospital following a shooting in South Colombia. Columbia Police Department officers found an adult male with a gunshot wound at the Buffalo Wild Wings restaurant on East Nifong just before midnight, a police spokesman confirmed. The suspect, Alexis Gonzalez, was arrested on charges of first-degree assault, armed criminal action, and unlawful use of a weapon. Police say there was no further threat to the community.